The legendary Jim Rohn, one of the most famous and well-known motivational and self-help gurus of all time, told a story that changed his entire life. He was talking about when he was 25 years old, he was barely making ends meet. He had a small family, not making much money at all, and he was just seems like he was owing more money than he was making, and it was just seemingly getting worse, spiraling downhill. And then one day a knock came to his door on a Saturday morning, and he opened the door, and there was a Girl Scout standing there, just a little girl with her mom in the background selling Girl Scout cookies. And she told him about all the flavors and how it was going to help the organization of Girl Scouts. And it was only $2. And Jim Rohn wanted to buy the cookies. He wanted to help the Girl Scouts, of course. But he had a big problem. He didn't have $2 to his name. There was not $2 in the house. And so he couldn't buy the cookies. And he looked at the little girl and he lied to her. He told her, well, we've already bought a bunch of Girl Scout cookies. We haven't eaten what we have already, but appreciate you coming by. And she said, well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And off she went. And when he closed the door, he felt about as low as a human being could ever feel. He talks about it in his audio series on the day that turns your life around. He says this was the day that turned his life around. When he shut that door and he felt about as low as he could go for lying to a Girl Scout, he said that was the day I decided I'm not going to live like this ever again. And it was that day that he decided to begin turning his life around and studying what it takes to become successful in life. And fortunately for him, he came under the tutelage and mentoring of a man by the name of Earl Shoaff, who helped Jim Rohn go from a broke 25-year-old to a millionaire 30-year-old. Just in 5 years, he turned his entire life around. And from that, Jim Rohn became, again, one of the most well-known motivational teachers and speakers in American and world history. And what Rohn talks about more than anything else, or at least it's among the top three things that he talks about the importance of reading self-development books, self-help books, and how these self-development books can literally turn your life around, not just by reading them, but by studying them and applying the principles within them, developing a philosophy of personal development, and that you dedicate yourself to becoming the person that you want to become in life, whatever that may be. And so what I want to do in this video is I want to tell you how to read and study a self-help book. Because too often what we do is we just grab them and read them and set them on the shelf, and that's the end of it. Your life is not going to change if you simply just read it and put it aside. And so I'm going to be talking about this book, Think and Grow Rich, and how to read it, how to study it, how to get the most out of it. And before I get into that, though, I want to share with you what self-help books have done for me at this stage of my life as I look back over it, because I have read literally hundreds. I've probably read somewhere in the vicinity of 100 to 150 self-help books in my life. Many of them I've just read and set aside and didn't get any value from them. But when I learned how to really read them, study them, and apply them, that's when I started getting some really good results. Like, for example, I got over all self-doubt. I mean, one of the things that will stop you from moving forward in your life is just limiting beliefs, not believing in yourself. And one of the things that good self-help books do is they help you take a good look at yourself, look at the reasons that you are feeling as though you're a failure, how you allow fear and limiting beliefs to prevent you from going forward. So when I read many of these books, I started discovering that self-doubt is one of my biggest problems. So these books helped me to get over self-doubt. They also helped me to build confidence. I mean, confidence is extremely important. If you're not confident in yourself and your objectives, your purposes, that you have the ability to accomplish those, then you're going to be in trouble. And self-help books will help you build confidence. They help me build confidence. A big one that I love is they help you to overcome the negative naysayers, what I call the negative Nancys of the world. There are a lot of people who look at their own lives and feel as though that they're failures and they're not, they haven't moved very far in life. And so they feel as though that it's their responsibility to take you down with them. That when you tell them something you're going for, a dream that you're going after, they'll tell you, oh, you can't make it. That's too hard. Too many people have tried that. The failure rate is too high. Try something else. It's just, and they'll give you a list of reasons why you can't do it. And as Arnold Schwarzenegger said in his great speech on how to be successful, he said, you've got to learn to avoid the naysayers. And self-help books will help you get to that point in your life. And other things that they did for me is they helped me to build two successful businesses. I actually have two businesses I make pretty decent money with on both of them. I'm not a millionaire by any stretch. I've got a long way to go as far as making the amount of money that I wanted to make in life, but I'm still working on it, and I'm a lot closer than I used to be. And I gained the confidence and the ability to put all my fears aside, stop working for everyone else, stop letting everyone else control my schedule and how much I make. And I just decided to launch out in my own businesses, and self-help books help me to figure out how to do that, have the confidence to do it, and have the ability to make plans to make it happen. Another thing that self-help books did for me is they helped me earn higher academic status. I have two master's degrees, and yes, I have a PhD, even though you would not tell by looking at me that I have an earned doctorate. But no one in my family, no one of all of my cousins, all my aunts, uncles, there are scads and scads of people in my family. My mother had 11 brothers and sisters. My dad had 9 brothers and sisters, which means I have tons of cousins and nieces and so nephews and all that. And I'm the only one out of all of us in our family heritage. We come from a blue collar background, which is nothing wrong with that. Something I'm very proud of, but I had a lot of people say, we don't do doctorates in our family. Well, I'm the one that proved them wrong, and it's because of self-help books, the things that they taught me. I learned the power of goal setting. The biggest problem with goals is not in achieving them. We can achieve a goal. The problem is in setting them in the first place. And you've got to want something so badly that you will literally make it a goal to accomplish it in your life. And self-help books help me to see the power of goal setting and how to actually bring them to fruition. It helped me to get into better shape. I looked at my life. I'm in my 60s now. I'm in better shape in my 60s than I was in my 30s. In my 30s and 40s, I was overweight. I was out of energy. I was passed out on the campus of the university I was going to when I was working on my doctorate. I had high cholesterol and diverticulitis and stress and anxiety, and it showed in my physical body. I looked awful and I felt awful. And so all these years later, I understood after reading all these self-help books that if you feel good, you do good. And that's why I'm passionate about health and wellness. And there'll be some information about that in the description below if you're interested in finding out more. So that's just a few of the things that I took from my journey into reading self-help books. Now what I want to do is actually just tell you how to get the most out of a self-help books. And one of the greatest of all time, of course, is this one here, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Now, so many other self-help books really just repeat what this one says. If you want to accomplish goals, if you want to make a certain amount of money or start a business or whatever goal that you have for your life, this book is sort of like the standard bearer of all of them. All of the other books that you read on self-development, really, the principles can be found in here, but they'll just be stated in different ways. And I would encourage you to read as many as you can and study them. But here's what you do. Here's step number one. Step number one in how to read a self-development book or a self-help book is to simply read it from cover to cover. I mean, don't have a pen in your hand. Don't have a pencil to underline anything. Just sit back and set a certain time of each day, read it from cover to cover and get through it. And then after that, just set it aside and let a few days go by to let it kind of sink in. Don't start reading anything else. Just put that one aside for a few days and let the information kind of start sinking in. And then what you're going to do is, as you reflect on what you read, there's going to be certain chapters in the book that really spoke to you. Now, that doesn't mean that that chapter is better than the others. What it means is that where you are in your life right now, in your journey of life, then that chapter that really resonated with you is resonating with where you are at this particular juncture of life. So in this book, Think and Grow Rich, I mean, I've read it so many times, but the first time I read it, I remember how powerful this chapter was, the chapter on decision, because my biggest problem in life at that time was making a decision as to what I wanted to do and where my life was taking me. And so what you want to do is you want to kind of make a note of 2 or 3 of the chapters that really resonated with you, or just one, it doesn't matter. But then what you want to do is you want to go back and you want to really read that chapter several more times. And because as you read it, the more you read it, you'll see things that you didn't see before. So go back to the chapter or chapters that spoke to you when you read through it the first time. So because again, that's where you are at that juncture. The third thing you want to do is, as you're reading that chapter, is you're going to want to underline and make notes in the margins. And the reason you want to do that is because as you go back to the book, when you see something, you're reading something that really spoke to you, then you underline it. That way, when you go back to it later, you don't have to read the entire chapter so much. You just read what you've underlined and then maybe get a journal and write down some principles from it. So you want to underline the most prominent aspects of it. Set it aside and come back and read it again the next day, and you'll probably see even more that you didn't see the day before. And then another thing you want to do is you want to change the names of the actual chapters. And what I mean by this is, years ago when I was in college, one of my professors said, relabel the chapter title. Narrow it down to a sentence that really speaks to you as to what the chapter is about. So in the book, Think and Grow Rich, the chapter on faith, I'm showing it to you here on the screen, but the chapter on faith, I changed the title of that chapter to Belief in Myself and My Purpose. The chapter is about believing in myself and the purpose that I'm carrying out, that I have the faith and the belief that I can actually carry it out. As first of all, a faith in me and to be able to do it, and then the faith that the purpose, the goal, is something that I really want to do and believe that its accomplishment will make me a lot better of a person and enjoy life so much more. So make sure you read it all the way through and then go back and reread the chapters that spoke to you when you first read it, and then underline the significant statements in each one of them, relabel or rename the chapters, and then lastly, take action on what the book says. Again, you can do all of this study and all of this research and write it all down, journal it, and get all these great ideas. But unless you actually say, okay, great, now I'm going to actually do this. When I got the idea of starting my business, my first business, I was like, okay, here's the story. I don't have much to work with. I didn't have a lot of money to invest in it. I needed a significant amount of equipment. But because I believed that it was a purpose for me, I didn't let the fact that I didn't have a lot of resources available to me. I didn't let that stop me from going forward. I knew what I wanted to do, and I didn't put up any more excuses. So many people want to do something, but they start listing off all the reasons why they can't do it. What I chose to do was list off all the reasons that I could. And so what I started doing was, first of all, made a list of all the equipment that I had, understood that I didn't have the financial resources to get them all. But then I called the companies that had those pieces of equipment that I needed. And I just simply talked to the management there. And I said, look, I want to be one of your customers. I'm not in a place where I can just pay for it outright and not sure what my financing options are. What I do know is I want your product and I want to use it. What can we do? And then they told me some options that I didn't even know existed. But if I had never made that phone call, if I had just sat back and said, well, I don't have much money and I don't have this and I don't have that, and like most people do, then I wouldn't have got started. I chose to find out for myself. Uh, One of the things that Napoleon Hill talks about in the book is don't worry about how you're going to do it. Get the goal in front of you, get the purpose that you want to do in front of you, and then decide to go for it. Don't worry about how you're going to do it. How will come to you. This is why I picked up the phone and just simply called these distributors of these products. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just knew that I had a phone and a desire, and I called them, and they gave me some ideas that actually worked. And all these years later, I'm in business and haven't looked back. So that's how you read and get the best or get the most out of a self-help book. You simply read it all the way through. Then you go back and you read again the chapters that spoke most to you. You rename the chapters in a way that it represents what the chapter meant to you. That's the purpose of relabeling or retitling it, so you can say what the chapter basically said to you. And then you want to take action. Put all your excuses aside and say, okay, this book has given me some great information about myself, about my goals. Now I'm going to go for it. I hope this has been helpful to you and encouragement to you. Go for your dreams. Pick up self-development books, self-help books. Don't just read them, study them, make them a part of who you are, and you'll have a lot better chance, a much better chance of accomplishing your goals and your dreams. All the best.